Hey crafty friends, this is Chelsea. In today's video, I'm going to make a double page layout using this beautiful In Full Bloom collection by Close to My Heart. I have the gorgeous papers here. I have the sticker sheet, so many beautiful flowers, definitely up my alley, and lots of good words and things that I'm going to use to embellish my pages. I'll give you a closer look at some of the patterns that come in this pack. Keep in mind that this is April, which means this current catalog retires at the end of this month. If you're thinking you'd like to get your hands on this paper, or maybe you want to get a second pack like I did, you'll want to do that before the end of the month. I'm also using some of this nice wood grain paper, and I pulled a couple different options for some pink. There was no pink in this collection, but I wanted some on my layout, so I grabbed a couple of pieces from my stash. Close to My Heart cardstock is double-sided, so you can see a slightly darker side. I'm using this very light gray. It's called linen. Usually I use white as my base pages, but I thought, hey, I'll switch it up today and use the light side of linen. I have cut my wood grain paper here and these other pattern papers in this fun sort of bracket shape on my Cricut. And then the words, I used a font from my computer, welded them together, and then cut them out on white cardstock. This layout is all about a day in my life. So I'm following Ali Edwards' concept of a day in the life. She does that project about 2 times a year, and I've participated. I think this will be my 4th layout. She usually does like a mini album, 4x6, 3x8, different sizes like that. But I really like having these layouts in my albums, so I like to make them 12 by 12 and double paged because that's how most of my layouts are. Now the real trick is when you're doing this on pages instead of a mini album is fitting all the pieces in that you want to use. So you can see I have some extra photos, I have some extra pattern papers, and I'm going to be using flip flaps to help me accomplish adding more photos and journaling to these pages. If you've never used flip flaps before, basically they're like a clear pocket with a self-adhesive strip on them, and you just fold that strip over and stick it right onto your page protector. You can also stick it onto your page and then cut a slit to put it through, but that is not for me. I stick it right on my page protectors. I'm also showing you the Picture My Life pocket cards here because that's what I used on this one right here. I just cut it down. I love the pattern, and I'm going to use that to help embellish my page. I cut a little 1/2 inch by 6 inch strip from the same blue pattern paper that I used at the top of this section. I thought it would be fun to kind of color code each section, morning, afternoon, and evening. I should also mention all my little squares, my photos and papers and everything are all 3 by 3. I started by adhering that little strip at the bottom. The trick is to get that on straight so that the rest of the things will all go on straight. So then I started working on the photos and just worked my way all the way up to the top, putting everything right tight next to each other. And it worked out pretty good. I think I got them on there fairly straight. I should also mention I'm planning on doing some stitching with my sewing machine. So I am only putting adhesive on the areas that I know I'm not going to sew through. That's a really fast way to gunk up the needle on your machine if you're sewing through adhesive all the time. So I am keeping that in mind as I go along. I'm also keeping in mind where I want to put my little flip flaps. So I decided I wanted to do sort of a grid, offsetting them. I'm going to keep this same pattern on the next page where it's just kind of every other square is going to have a flip flap. Next, I'm going to adhere that piece of wood grain paper. Same thing, I'm just putting adhesive in the middle because I plan to stitch around the outside. After I attach that wood grain piece into place, then I'm going to continue my pattern on the right-hand page with the coordinating strip of pattern paper. And then I'm just going to keep on building my whole collage of photos and journaling. Having a very solid collage of photos and writing and everything can be a little bit much and overwhelming. So that's why I decided it would be fun for the flip flaps to have some pieces that are just purely decorative. Some of them with images on them, some of them more plain. But basically, I wanted this to break up the kind of monotony of that grid pattern since I don't have any spaces between my photos and my journaling. Allie Edwards has a lot of different ways that she approaches this day in the life project. And I've only done a couple different ways where I'm looking at like times of day or morning, afternoon, evening. I really haven't tried a different approach yet, but I will make sure to link her channel down the description. So if you want to find out more about the project and maybe participate in it, you can find all the details right from the source. I'm bringing my pages a little bit closer to show you all the stitching. Now it is white thread, so it's a little bit harder to see, but in person, it just adds this perfect little border around everything. Adds a little bit of extra texture, adds a little bit of that homemade feeling to it. I'm just really enjoying the machine stitching right now. And it's great practice doing all those little squares. And I did a row of stitching along the bottom of each of those bracket shapes. And then also the little strips at the bottom, I also did a line of stitching there. I was feeling brave, so I stitched through a couple of these stickers and it turned out all right. There are some great embellishments that coordinate with this In Full Bloom collection. This black leaf here is from the die cut pack. I am going to make sure I link everything for you guys that is still available down in the description box so you can find it easily on my website. I was trying to strike a balance with these embellishments to add a little bit to the page, but also not make it too overwhelming or too busy. So I just adding some stickers here and there, some die cuts here and there, and hopefully we end up in a good place. This light bulb that I'm showing you is from the die cut pack. So it's kind of like really thin black chipboard. And then I just took a piece of the yellow paper, is from one of the Picture My Life cards, glued it on top, and then used my scissors to trim out around the outside. Then I'm embellishing it with some floral stickers and leaves. Since these spots are quite small, I am chopping up some pieces, trimming down like some of these leaves so that they'll fit better, and also just limiting what I put on each square. Usually I would probably put a cluster of 3 butterflies on here, but it just looked too busy and 2 seemed to be a little bit better. This square that says, "With you I am home," I actually cut that down from a Picture My Life card. I used a couple of them. The green one with the bird is also a Picture My Life card. And I just thought it was a nice way to have some smaller patterns and also some patterns that aren't in the paper pack. I used glue to attach the morning, afternoon, and evening into place. And now I'm laying out my title. So I did the same thing. I used fonts from my computer and cut them out on my Cricut, except this time I cut them on black. And I used the solid core black cardstock, so I don't have a white edge showing. Now the fun thing about using fonts from your computer is you can also type in the same fonts. So I did up a daily schedule of what our day was like that day, and I put the date on there so that it wouldn't get lost. And that is gonna go right beneath the title. It's matted with the pink paper. And now I'm showing you another one of the Picture My Life cards. This one, I fussy cut out that flower to be kind of a focal point down there by the schedule. I figured I needed some sort of embellishment down there in that bottom corner. I'm also going to add a leaf sticker from the sticker sheet. And then I decided I needed more flowers, and I'd kind of used up everything I had on the sticker sheet. So that means it was time to grab my favorite set, the In Full Bloom Scrapbooking Stamp and Thin Cuts. So it has coordinating dies that go along with it, and these gorgeous large flowers and leaves and butterflies. I'm putting down a little foam that comes in the stamp set to help me get a good impression. I'm using my black ink and some scraps from the Picture My Life cards. I'm stamping this floral cluster on here. And then off screen, I also stamped the leaves onto some green pattern paper, and I'm going to cut them all out and paper piece them together. So the green pieces are actually going to get fussy cut and stuck on top of the yellow paper. So here is what that finished flower cluster looks like. Love how this turned out. It was super easy. I know since we have coordinating dies, a lot of the time we don't fussy cut anymore, but this saves a lot of time in coloring and it automatically matches your paper. Going to attach that to my page now with pop dots. I like to add a little bit of dimension on my pages, but not too much. And then I grabbed a butterfly from the sticker sheet and I'm going to use some foam dots on that one as well. I like those little flowers so much that I decided to repeat this with another cluster and some extra leaves for the top above my title. All right, now it's time to get those flip flaps into action. So I'm going to remove all my little squares and I'm going to slide my page into a page protector. You want to make sure when you're doing this that the holes of your page protector are on the correct side. I can tell you I have accidentally put in my page wrong and then your flip flaps are on the wrong side of the page. So I have my holes on the right hand side here and I'm going to slide my layout down into the page protector and make sure I push it as far as it can go down in there. I repeated that process on the other page so you can see I have both pages with the holes of the page protector in the middle there. Now I'm going to start by putting my squares into the little flip flaps, pushing it in as far as it will go, and then figuring out which side my adhesive needs to be on. I'm just going to peel off the covering on the adhesive, and then the best way is to have your head right up over top of this so you can line up the paper that is inside the flip flap with the edges of the photo that is beneath it. I'm not paying attention to where the edge of my flip flap is. I'm looking at where the edge of the paper is. Now you can see when I open it there, you can see a very clear seam. That does not bother me. It doesn't take away from the photo. It's clear and it's much easier to me than going and cutting slits in all of my page protectors. So I'm going to flip that top one open so that I can stick this middle one down. And I do want to mention that I purposely figured out which way I needed to put them so that they would overlap all right, because the flip flaps are a little bit larger than the actual 3x3 square. So you just need to keep that in mind when you're planning out a grid layout like this. And some of these squares are going to overlap. It's not a big deal. You just want to keep in mind where the adhesive strip is sticking down. So here is my finished layout with all of the squares, all the flip flaps on there, and the interactivity is just so much fun. It allows you to hide so much journaling and extra photos and pretty patterned paper, and really breaks up that big grid design. These flip flaps come in a ton of sizes, everything from a tiny 2x2 up to 3x4, 4x6, all the way up to an 8x12. So there's so many different things that you can do with these. I have some close-up shots to share with you guys so you can hopefully see all the details that are really hard to capture on video, all the fun stitching and die cuts and everything. I hope you enjoyed this layout and maybe it gave you some ideas. If you want to try day in the life, but maybe you don't want to use a mini album or smaller sizes, I really enjoy having these pages in my big 12x12 albums. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you subscribe and check out this video on the screen. I think you might like it.